Welcome to Three Count Commentaries. This is your host, Mongo Slade, and let's talk about Elimination Chamber 2021. So before we get into the actual pay-per-view, there's a couple of notes I want to go through. Number one, Lacey Evans obviously was pregnant, so Asuka's match was canceled. So after this match was actually canceled, I saw a lot of people complaining that there was, one, no women's chamber match. Two, that they just didn't replace Lacey Evans with someone else. Two is understandable. Two is an understandable argument. Number one is a ridiculous statement. We don't need to have a women's chamber match just because there's a men's one. You don't have to have two matches. You really don't need to have two chamber matches at all. If we being honest, you don't really need to have two. But just because the women exist, don't mean they have to have a chamber match. They don't have to have the exact same card as the men. I mean, if you feel like that, I'm sorry to hear that, but that's not how wrestling cards are booked. Sometimes they're in tag matches, sometimes they're in six-man tags, sometimes they're title matches, sometimes they're non-title matches, whatever. It does not have to be the same. All right? This show was more than likely going to be the show where Asuka was going to drop the belt to Lacey Evans. So now Lacey Evans got pregnant. There's nothing nobody can do about it. You want women to be equal to men, tell these women to stop getting pregnant. So it is what it is. Now, they could have thrown somebody else in there. And I generally agree with that. They could have, again, put Peyton Royce in the spot. She was the only other person that you could have put in that spot and could have passed the title to her, even though I think that eventually the title was just going to go to Charlotte anyway. But now they took some extra time. Maybe they feel like, okay, there's enough on this show, and they want to kick it over to Raw. Okay, now you have a reason to watch Raw. It doesn't need to be the same every time. So it's just frustrating to see people who think that. Now you could say easily, I think, that WWE doesn't give a shit about the Raw Women's title. That's absolutely true. They don't, and they haven't. They've proven that for several weeks now, when they had Asuka just get beat by Alexa Bliss on TV. It proves right there that they didn't give a shit. She is the worst booked champion, probably in the business, and probably, period, in the last 5 or 10 years. I cannot think of a champion who's been beaten or ignored so more than Asuka. But that's not Asuka's fault, obviously. It's the fault of the company. They only care about Sasha Banks and Charlotte and Becky Lynch and all these people who, take 5 months vacations, they get pregnant, they do all this type of stuff, and everybody else just kind of gets left in the lurch. And that's nobody's fault. It's just nobody's fault. It's just the company doesn't care. They would rather have Charlotte disappear for 6 months, Sasha Banks disappear for 5 months, Becky Lynch get pregnant, than actually push other people. Sorry. That's not anybody's fault. But over the last 2 or 3 years, the horsewomen have been the only thing that they cared about, and those women keep disappearing. And other women who they try to push, either they fall off the face of the earth, they give up on them, or they get pregnant. But thank God we still have Bianca Belair. But there's still some stuff we need to talk about. We'll talk about that later. So on the kickoff show, they did a fatal 4-way match. John Morrison, Elias, Ricochet, and Mustafa Ali. The winner was going to go into the triple threat match. Of course, this match was just to pick a person to lose in the triple threat, the United States Championship triple threat match, and John Morrison won. So John Morrison got to be on the pay-per-view. The finish came with Mustafa Ali getting rolled up and pinned because he was distracted by Retribution beating up Ricochet. I thought that it was not going to matter because Retribution was going to come out later. Clearly, they didn't do that. If you saw this show, spoiler alert, this is the only time you saw Retribution all night. So that was frustrating because, they literally handed you a storyline right here for Retribution to interrupt the Kofi Kingston's thing, but they didn't even do that. So clearly, they just don't think enough of these kinds of people. And that's just the company. The company just doesn't care. It is what it is. Now, so you can say, oh, it's sexism. It's not sexism because there's plenty of men in Retribution that they don't care about. They just don't care about certain people. They're moving on, So I think that trying to hold all that smoke or hold all that steam in is like, you should know by now. If you was an Asuka fan, you should know by now they don't care. If you're a Mustafa Ali Retribution mark or whatever, you should know by now they're not going to put any focus on them. The story is not about them. The story is about other people. And that's where they wanted to put it. All right, so let's get started with the Elimination Chamber match, the first match. Well, let's talk about the show. The show overall was pretty good. Some decent matches, some controversial decisions. There are some things about the show I obviously didn't like. You probably tell from the sound of my voice. There are some things that I didn't really care for. But ultimately, it was a solid show from top to bottom. Nothing sucked. But there were decisions that I didn't really care for. So let's talk about the Elimination Chamber match, the first match, the SmackDown Chamber. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Daniel Bryan, Cesaro, King Corbin, and Jey Uso. So Jessica Carr got some heat for throwing out Sami Zayn's doctoral team. I'm guessing he keeps arguing with Jessica Carr, so I'm guessing she's going to end up being involved in whatever storyline that's going to be going forward. Maybe she's going to be the one that's going to be conspiring against Sami Zayn. That, because they showed clips of like him arguing with her all the time. So maybe Jessica Carr is going to be the WWE official that they have that is conspiring against Sami Zayn at the end of the story. That would be interesting. So Cesaro and Daniel Bryan started the match, which of course makes sense. You start the match with your workhorses. Cesaro focused on the left leg, and then other people kind of did the same thing when it comes to Daniel Bryan. So this match was pretty solid. Cesaro was in it, whooping ass, man. It was really good. Like when you had certain spots, like when you had Sami Zayn who was lifted to the top of the pod, and then he tried to escape, top of Jey Uso's spot. Then he tried to escape Cesaro, and then he tried climbing it. So he climbed up. It was kind of like watching a guy play, like he was Vega from Street Fighter. He's going across that fence. And then Cesaro comes up there and he kind of does like a chin up and kicks him. And of course, the camera angle completely ruined the fall that Sami Zayn made. And it's kind of like, it's very frustrating because the camera is really, it was too many cuts in this match. There was too many cuts, period, throughout this entire show. But that spot particularly jumped out at me as something that was completely unnecessary to cut from. Baron Corbin was eliminated first, following a flying European uppercut into the swing into the sharpshooter. That flying uppercut by itself should have been a finish. That was pretty damn sweet. I like when Kevin Owens came in, Sami Zayn tried to talk to him. Obviously, he was trying to talk him into helping him. But of course, he's not going to do that. He's not stupid. So, but when Uso came in, him and Owens went after each other immediately. I really love how Jey Uso was in this match. This match was a stunner for him. It was really, he has been really proving himself to be a top guy in these matches. He came in last, Jey Uso. I like the Kevin Owens moonsault from the top of the pod. That was pretty cool. Sami Zayn got eliminated by a stunner from Kevin Owens. And my favorite spot is when Jey Uso slammed the door on Kevin Owens' arm. That was a great spot because it looked like it hurt like hell. And then he followed up with 4 super kicks straight. And then he gets his arm out of the door and he kicked him again. Then he pinned him with the Uso splash. So Jey Uso basically almost single-handedly ruined Kevin Owens' night. Pretty damn sweet. I really enjoyed that. Like this really, it's always good when Jey Uso can get a good solid win on somebody and not have to worry about, just looking weak because Roman's not helping him or that he's not a talent on his own. This was very resourceful on his part. And then it was also very good because Kevin Owens is the most hated of the guys in this match. He was the one that that him and Roman should have been targeting. And he successfully got rid of him. So Cesaro swung Uso back and forth into the chain, like boom, boom, boom. I thought that was pretty cool. He hit the post too at one point. So Cesaro was eliminated by the Uso splash. That left Uso versus Bryan as the last two. And when Uso tried the Uso splash, Daniel Bryan put up the knees. And then following a running knee, Jey Uso was eliminated. Pretty good match. Pretty fucking good match. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the hell out of that. Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns went almost exactly like most people would think. Daniel Bryan had one hope spot, which is he countered the spear into the yes lock. After Roman broke free, it was pretty much over. Ground and pound, power bomb, and guillotine choke led to the ref stoppage, and that was it. Roman Reigns defended the title against Daniel Bryan. And so after the match, we get Edge. Edge spears Roman Reigns, points to the WrestleMania sign to make it official. And the fireworks, of course, sealed the deal. It will be Edge versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. So that means what are we going to be doing at Fastlane? So I think at Fastlane, we're probably going to get Jimmy and Jay or Jay and Roman. Either the Usos versus Edge and Christian or Roman and Jay versus Edge and Christian. Even though I think Edge and Christian will be at Fastlane. I do think that will happen. Just so they can tell the story of family, and Edge will have somebody in his corner to keep Jey Uso at bay. And then, of course, you're going to counter that with Jimmy returning, just to give Roman the numeric advantage again. Because that makes sense. Like, he needs the numeric advantage because he's the heel. So you're going to have Edge, then you're going to have Christian watching Edge's back, then you're going to have Jay watching Roman's back, and then you're going to have Jimmy come in near actual WrestleMania. So you have the bloodline at full strength going into WrestleMania against Edge and Christian. And that'll be pretty sweet. I think that'll be pretty fun. Do I think Edge will win? I don't know. We'll talk about that some other time. Let's get right into this. So Bad Bunny was talking to Sonya Deville before The Miz interrupted. The Miz wanted to know what he was doing there. Bad Bunny said he's the 24/7 champion and said, you're the Miz. Are you even a champion? Miz shoved him. He smacked Miz. And then Miz was, of course, about to tear him apart. And then Damian Priest showed up and Miz backed down. He was like, okay, whatever. Okay. Now, this was pretty solid. Obviously, this kind of was one of the seeds for the story that will come later when Miz won the title. That's no spoiler, but this made sense here because this is now Bad Bunny who has a title, and he's making fun of the Miz for having no title, and he's a musician, and the Miz is supposed to be a wrestler, so he's like, oh shit, I need a title. This guy's walking around with a belt. I don't have one, but I do have the Money in the Bank, so it kind of gives him something to think about. So the third match, Riddle, Lashley, Morrison for the United States title. 175 days of Lashley as the United States champion. A great title run for him. It ends here tonight. This match was pretty fucking good too. You had Lashley dominating both of these guys, Riddle and Morrison. Morrison and Riddle working together. Some of the high flying stuff at certain points in the match were pretty fucking good too. You had we had Riddle kind of do his triangle pull over the top rope when he did to Lashley. And then he pulled the top rope down. Morrison did a floating Zabada over the top rope, which led to Riddle doing the floating bro onto him. And then Jomo betrayed Riddle by throwing him against the ring post. Those people getting thrown against the ring post all night. That's one thing that I would have to say. I noticed that they were really hitting those ring posts a lot in one night. Lashley kicked out of the Starship Pain. So that was something. He kicked out of his finish. The finish came when John Morrison started arguing with MVP, telling him to shut up. Then he took MVP's crutch because MVP had an injured knee. And he threatened to hit MVP with it. And then he got back in the ring, figuring he was going to hit Lashley with it. Lashley caught him, put him in the full Nelson, and he was swinging him back and forth as he does. And in doing so, John Morrison dropped the crutch. Riddle picked the crutch up, bashed Lashley in the back with it twice. Lashley went down, powdered, and then Riddle pinned John Morrison with the Bro Derek. And Riddle is now the United States champion. This is a good move. The United States title, like the Intercontinental Championship, was a work rate title. Lashley was a good champion, great champion. It was time to move on to go someone else. It was time for him to go back to the main event. This was a perfect decision. I understand why they put so much effort into, hey, let's just get this match in the ring. It didn't matter who it was. The end result was going to be other guy getting pinned so Lashley wouldn't get pinned. That's how it was going to be, whether it was Keith Lee or anyone else. So I'm glad that, they put somebody in there who didn't really matter in the long run, but that nobody really did anybody kind of believe John Morrison would win? Not really. He was just a body to take a pinfall. Now that's fucked up to think because John Morrison is really good. He's really talented and he could be doing so much more. But that's basically what his job was tonight, was to basically take pinfalls. But he did a great job. He did a fantastic job, and this match was actually pretty good. And I hate triple threat matches, I really do. But this match rocked. So you had the tag team title match. Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair versus Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. The match, I have been saying, is completely unnecessary for 2-3 days. And I have said it numerous times, this match is so completely unnecessary. So before the match, we get Reginald saying somebody as beautiful as Sasha Banks should always be draped in gold, and he's going to have a bottle of champagne ready for her. And of course, that meant that he was going to interfere at some point, and that's exactly what happened. There were some odd spots in this match. For instance, there was a spot where Nia Jax was supposed to throw Sasha Banks on top of Bianca Belair, and Bianca Belair was standing there waiting for her to throw Sasha Banks. And she was like, basically like, you got it, you got it, you got it. I don't want you to drop her. And then Nia Jax finally threw her, and she was able to catch Sasha Banks. It was like, oh God, the miscommunication. Shayna Baszler was basically being a meat grinder, which is important. She's really good at that. Sasha Banks was the baby face in peril. She was the one who Shayna Baszler kind of targeted and was taken down, twisting her limbs and all this sort of different stuff like that. But then she began her own comeback. So there was no hot tag because she started her own comeback. She didn't give Bianca Belair anything. So then the finish comes when Reginald comes down to ringside bringing a bottle of champagne with him. He gives the bottle of champagne to Sasha Banks to use after she had, I believe it was Nia Jax in the bank statement. In the bank statement, but she had got to the ropes. Sasha Banks refused to use the bottle, even though Reginald was telling her to. The ref caught Sasha Banks with the bottle. He took it from her. Sasha Banks was like, no, what are you doing? She turned around. Nia Jax hit her with a small drop and pinned her. And of course, then both women yelled at Reginald. Both Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks yelled at Reginald for interfering in their match. And I don't see why we needed Reginald in this match, why we need him in this situation if it doesn't involve Carmella. Unless something is about to go on where Reginald is going to become Sasha Banks' manager, like if he's going to team up with her, they need to just find some way of doing it. But I don't like the idea of you just pinned the champion for what? Like what? You could have got out of this match in any other way. You could have had a disqualification. You could have had a count out. You could have just not booked this match. And look, there was just no way in this match and no way out of it that would have made any sense. And you didn't need it. You didn't need this match. Sasha Banks didn't need to take this loss. I mean, I'm fine with Sasha Banks taking the loss. She doesn't lose that often. But you kind of should want your champions going into WrestleMania strong. And so you should want your contenders going into WrestleMania strong. And now both of them have lost. Now, I guess the point of this is to build up Baszler and Jax so that when they ultimately lose the titles, they can say, well, look at, we have a consistent record of winning these matches. But they could have beat the Riot Squad for something like that. They could have beat Tamina and Natalya for something like that. They didn't have to beat Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. That's just, it was just completely unnecessary. And I'm not a fan of it. It was dumb, and I spent too much time on this again because I'm not a fan of it. I just hate that people are going into these matches with losses. It's stupid. So then you saw MVP conspiring with The Miz, which of course was a spoiler. It was a spoiler. The Miz was conspiring with MVP. This was clearly a spoiler. So then the main event. The Elimination Chamber match for the WWE title. Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, Randy Orton, AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, and Kofi Kingston. So there's two things about Kofi Kingston. Well, three things I want to talk about Kofi Kingston. One, him checking behind him during his entrance to make sure nobody's going to attack him from behind. I like that. It was a nice touch because everybody had been whispering about Retribution going to attack him. And it would have made perfect sense for them to attack him. It would have made perfect sense for them to attack him at some point in this match. Now, there becomes a point in this match where it would have made a lot of sense for Retribution to get involved. But that would mean you're trying to get these guys over, and they're clearly not trying to do that. It's clearly not the goal. Number two, he had G4, the G4 channel. He had the logo on his tights, and the camera did pick it up several times. I support the product placement. You know, obviously that's just support for Xavier Woods, who is going to be a host of a show on G4. So it's pretty sweet. You know, I'm glad that they got to do that, the little product placement. They didn't make any mention to it on commentary, even though, you know, when they when Michael Cole did the horrendous Victoria beer commercial doing Rey Mysterio's entrance at the Royal Rumble, I thought maybe he'd give us a spiels about the G4 network, but clearly he didn't. So also Kofi Kingston in the pod talking to Randy Orton and all the other guys who came in the ring. Kofi Kingston is just a joy. You know, like he's just a guy who it's got to be fun being around. You know, like he just has fun at work. And he is in there trying to make Randy Orton laugh. He's talking about you looking real slithery today. And he starts talking about how his quads are thick. Your quads looking real thick. You've been doing squats. I was sitting like, why is he talking to this man? And he was kind of blowing the drama of McIntyre and Sheamus during their entrance, and they were staring at each other because McIntyre was already in his pod when Sheamus came down, and he's like, "Ooh, drama." But this chamber match was a lot of trash talking. A lot of these guys were yelling at each other from the pods, inside the pods, outside the pods, and stuff like that. So it was fun. There was a lot of jaw jacking going on. Jeff Hardy and Randy Orton started the match, and this match clearly was not 5-minute intervals. They clearly was not 5-minute intervals. And then at some point, they just stopped counting altogether. You know, because AJ Styles broke into the match unceremoniously. But Kofi Kingston eliminated Randy Orton really early into the match. I believe he pinned him with the SOS. That was actually a surprise because a lot of people, again, expected The Fiend. But The Fiend didn't come back. So now, you know, we're still teasing The Fiend. Everybody knows The Fiend is going to come back at some point in time to mess with Randy Orton. People thought that maybe, okay, you're either going to have Retribution in this match or you're going to have The Fiend in this match. You got neither. Now, I'm okay with it not being The Fiend. I'm not okay with it not being Retribution. No, I'm not okay with that. That was real dumb. Real dumb. So Randy Orton, once he gets eliminated, he RKOs Jeff Hardy and Kofi Kingston, who are the other two people in the ring. So Almost Diz ripped the back off the pod. He rips the pod open while outside the ring, so AJ Styles could get into the ring earlier and try to pin Kofi Kingston or Jeff Hardy. Both of them kicked out, but this was a great spot. Now, it would have been better if the pod hadn't broken earlier. Like earlier in the night, the pod had been ajar. You know, it was like they had showed that the pod was slightly ajar because somebody had hit it. I believe it was Sami Zayn or something. Had hit that particular pod, and the back came off of it. So apparently they just put it back on, but it still was very impressive that you can tell that they gimmicked it. But it was still pretty impressive. It made him look like, a beast that he rips the plexiglass off of the pod. And AJ Styles looks like, of course, like an opportunist. Like he didn't care about waiting. And because there are no rules, he was allowed to get into the match early and try to pin people. But, he obviously blew up the match because then the count went way off. I didn't know what was going on after that. Adam Pearce tossed Almost out of the match and got rid of him. I like that Sheamus was in this pod, not watching the match. He had his back turned to it. He was steaming in the corner, thinking very, very heavily about what was going on and how he wanted to get into this match and take care of this Drew McIntyre problem. And Drew McIntyre made sure to knock everybody down as Sheamus was getting ready to come into the ring so that the only two of them would be in the ring. And they threw McIntyre and Sheamus threw Kofi and Jeff Hardy outside the ring so that they could fight. And they, of course, just fought each other. And it seemed like they was going to fight each other and left Jeff Hardy and Kofi Kingston to fight each other. This was a great spot when Kofi Kingston jumped from leaped from the top of the pod. He did like his trust fall from the top of the pod and onto the field, which was pretty damn sweet. And the cameras did not botch it by cutting. So that was pretty sweet. Sheamus ended up pinning Kofi Kingston with a brogue kick. Then Jeff Hardy hit Twist of Fate on everybody and did a Whisper on the Wind onto Drew and Sheamus. Then, of course, Jeff Hardy's night ended with the Claymore by McIntyre. So then AJ Styles, he did really good in this match. He did a somersault senton. Obviously, he was supposed to do a 450, but Drew McIntyre was too close to him. So he doubled back and did it again, did a 450. So his somersault senton was pretty clean, but McIntyre was too close, so they kind of reset, and then he did it again. Sheamus was kind of pissed that AJ Styles couldn't finish Drew McIntyre, so he focused on him and was beating him, 10 beats of the Belfry, just beating this guy's ass. But ultimately, it was AJ Styles that got the final laugh because the phenomenal forearm pinned Sheamus, who had brogue kicked Drew, which left AJ Styles and Drew McIntyre as the final two competitors. And then, of course, as usual for AJ Styles, he does the phenomenal forearm and gets countered with a Claymore kick and pinned. And it was a great sell job by AJ Styles. He sold it like he got shot by a sniper. It was a great job. So the match was okay. I was kind of burned out. I mean, the idea of having two chamber matches is a drain, because now you have to try to make them different. You have to make them wildly different. And I don't think they made these matches different enough. Like they told different stories, yeah, but this match, it had so much potential going into it because of the Retribution or the Fiend and the Money in the Bank and all that type of stuff that you had the opportunity to do. And they only really did one of those things. They only did one of those things. So Lashley attacks Drew McIntyre after the Elimination Chamber match. I mean, just beat him from pillar to post, rammed his head against the announce table a bunch of times, and laid him out, hurt locked him, threw him in the ring, really just brutalized him. This, of course, led for Miz to cash in his Money in the Bank. He does a DDT to a 2-count skull-crushing finale for a 3-count, and The Miz is the WWE champion. And, of course, people were mad. People got very, 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 very mad that The Miz was the WWE champion, especially after he had been losing all this time, and because, let's talk about this. Bruce Mitchell, formerly of the PW Torch, posted a tweet almost immediately after the show that the white man did, the black man did the work, the white man gets to pay. And I just was like, that is such a horrific take. It is such a horrific take because they clearly was conspiring against Drew McIntyre. There had been a conspiracy against Drew McIntyre since December. I was making videos about the conspiracy against Drew McIntyre. That all these guys were trying to work together to fuck over Drew. And, it kind of fell apart. This was during, I think, the ladder match between AJ Styles. So it was the whole Amos and AJ and Morrison and Miz, and there was all these people. Randy Orton was floating around. And it was like, okay. It kind of died down for a little while. But The Miz, of course, has the Money in the Bank. Never let anybody forget that he had it, rather. And even though he was distracted with the Bad Bunny stuff, it kind of took him out of the picture for a little while. Even though he never really was out of the picture, he was just kind of moved to the side. He obviously was waiting for the right opportunity to cash in the Money in the Bank. And Lashley, of course, is going to create that opportunity. And it's obviously going to be for a reason. If Miz promised Lashley a title match for helping him, then it makes perfect sense for Miz and Lashley to conspire against McIntyre. It just so happens that The Miz is white. So fucking what? This is a business decision. This is not, and it's sad that people can't get over that kind of shit, that you see that kind of stuff, and it's like the first thing you see. It's not people even talking about storylines. People just politics on the fucking brain. Like, most people are not that political or that race conscious. Most people don't have that kind of shit on their brain, And I know it sounds like it very often, but most people don't. Like, if you ask people what, like, the kind of stuff that they care about, that kind of shit wouldn't even show up, So, but the white savior, of course, felt like he had to speak for black people. And he want to be the first to get woke and be out there, and it's just kind of like, man, fuck out of here. Now, another thing that I thought was fairly interesting, was people saying, okay, well, Bad Bunny is now going to be involved in the WWE title picture. And I said, well, what makes people think The Miz is going to be the champion at WrestleMania? There's just no way it's going to happen. This is what I see. I see either Lashley beating Miz for the title at Fastlane or at some point before, and then Lashley carrying the title into WrestleMania as the champion against Drew McIntyre, or Drew McIntyre gets a rematch and Drew McIntyre wins the title back, and then it's Drew McIntyre versus Lashley at WrestleMania. Now, I'm almost certain that Lashley is about to win the WWE title. That brings me joy, right? I am legit happy because I thought Lashley should have been WWE champion in 2007. It should have happened. It seems like 2021, we're finally going to get it. Now, either he's going to win the title before then and then drop it at Mania, or he's going to win the title at Mania. Either way, I'm so happy that Lashley is going to win the title. It's been a long time coming, and the Hurt Business was the right vehicle to do it. And I don't want that shit spoiled with the whole white man, black man bullshit. The Miz is just a temporary champion. I don't believe it's going to be a triple threat match because I don't believe The Miz is going to be the champion. I believe more than anything that it's probably going to be Bad Bunny that's going to cost The Miz the title. Bad Bunny and Damian Priest will likely end up fighting John Morrison and The Miz at WrestleMania. I believe that will happen. And I believe that's going to happen because I believe that Bad Bunny and Damian Priest are probably going to be the reason that The Miz lose the title. Because it just seems like it has to blow up in his face. Like he's been taken to the mountaintop. Now he's got to get pulled back down. They had to do something to make the road to WrestleMania interesting. And now they've done it. The title is not on a super strong champion anymore. It's on a weak champion now. The Miz is not in a position to really dominate over anybody that is in this scene anymore. He's not going to dominate over Lashley or Sheamus or McIntyre or anybody else. So we're looking at now, he's just chumming the water who has the belt. So now we're looking at, okay, do I believe he's just going to lose the first match that he's in? Probably not. He'll probably have it for 2 weeks or something like that. And then they'll set up a rematch, or Lashley is going to get his deserved title match, and he's just going to win. I don't believe Miz is going to go into WrestleMania as the champion. I think either he's going to lose the title at Fastlane, or he's going to lose the title before Fastlane. Either or. All right. Now, I've seen David LaGreca of Busted Open Radio say we should just do it on TV, or is that Jimmy Van of Fightful? One of the two. Said we basically should just do it on TV. That we should do the Lashley title win on TV. And I say that wouldn't hurt, but it wouldn't help. I think, Lashley's a heel. He's not going to get, quote unquote, the crown. Like you give the crown to the babyface who is going to be your guy going forward. So you really don't want to, quote unquote, crown Lashley, but you can put the title on him, sure. And maybe you're going to have Drew win the title back in front of crowds, which is what he deserved the first time. And Lashley is a guy to do that, but I wanted Lashley to have a long run. End of story is that, do I believe, okay, well, maybe at Fastlane there'll be a triple threat match. There'll be Miz, Lashley, McIntyre. And, but we still have the Sheamus business, right? The Sheamus stuff is still going on too. So this WWE title picture has 4 major players in it, plus Bad Bunny and Damian Priest, and John Morrison, who is tertiary players. So you have something very interesting going on in late February. You got a new champion in The Miz, his cohort and sidekick with John Morrison. You got Bad Bunny and Damian Priest, who have been feuding with those two guys for a while. You've got Miz, who got jumped in bed with the Hurt Business. He's jumped in bed with MVP and Lashley. So he's either going to get him that title shot or they're going to beat the shit out of him. He's going to have a pissed off Drew McIntyre. He's going to have a pissed off Sheamus. Sheamus is pissed off at McIntyre. McIntyre is pissed off at Sheamus. This could be really, really fun. And then you have the other layers of stuff going on too with AJ Styles. Who knows where he's going? Who knows what, probably going to be Kofi and Mustafa Ali at some point. But they had an opportunity to make that interesting and they didn't. Then you of course have Randy Orton in the Fiend will eventually take place, but you have the WWE title picture, which is fairly interesting. And if Bad Bunny's going to be in the title picture, like some people think, that means Damian Priest is going to be in the WWE title picture, and that's fucking cool, you know, because he's not going to wrestle a match. You know, Bad Bunny, he might, but he's not. He might wrestle, you know, at most a tag team match, you know. But I'm okay with things how it is. Am I all right with The Miz being the champion? I kind of figured The Miz would win the title because he'd been losing so much. WWE just has a way of just beating you down and not, you know, the concept of momentum does not exist. Like they would rather beat you down and put you in the closet, make you look stupid, and then, oh, hey, you won the title again. Um, which is really weird and really dumb. You know, it's really weird and it's really dumb. I don't know when that started, but I wish they had never started that. You know, and guys should never agree to do that. Like if you're going to be the champion and you probably know it, you should definitely push and apply some pressure to actually have some goddamn momentum when you actually go into it, which is what I'm guessing Lashley is going to do. That's why I believe Lashley is likely going to steamroll Miz and win the title. Likely it could be a fatal 4-way match at Fastlane with Sheamus, and then Sheamus still demanding his one-on-one match at that he wants a one-on-one match for the title, but he's not going to get it because Drew McIntyre won't go away. So this is very, very interesting. This is very interesting. You still have some guys, and you still have some personal feuds going on too, because like I said, you still got the Lashley and McIntyre thing. They were feuding over the title, but now the title is gone. You know, but the bad feelings are still there. So what are we going to do about that? And you got Miz who's probably going to get like a week or two of gloating, you know, of him yelling about being the champion and, you know, probably being knocked down and pushed around and all that type of stuff. And, you know, but I don't see him losing the belt, you know, immediately. But this was a great deal for Lashley because Miz is a very beatable champion. And if, you know, he's going to give him a title shot, go for it. Overall, from top to bottom, the show was solid. Of course, there were some booking decisions that didn't make sense. They could have put Asuka on the show. They chose not to. I guess they didn't want a hot shot, an opponent for her, which, I mean, they could have. It wouldn't have mattered. They could have just had Asuka beat Peyton Royce. It wouldn't have made a difference. Come on. Or Nikki Cross. It wouldn't have made a difference. But now they have to put some effort into doing something else with these women. The women's division on Raw is in shambles. They didn't need this SmackDown tag team title match or whatever the hell. But whatever they're about to do with Reginald, they need to get him the hell out of the way and get him out of there. This is the problem with, you know, trying to tell stories for over the course of 3 months. And then this guy has gotten popular. People like him. But at the same time, if he's going to be in the way of a main title feud. Like he has nothing to do with Bianca Belair or Sasha Banks. So either he needs to get into somebody's corner or get the fuck out the way. The SmackDown Chamber match pretty much blew up the entire SmackDown #1 contender scene. So now none of these guys are contenders anymore because Roman has beat them all except Cesaro. He hasn't beaten Cesaro yet, but he's beaten everybody. And so I guess we could do Roman and Bryan at Fastlane. You could do that. I've always been sort of pitching that idea that Roman and Bryan should main event Fastlane. I believe they had a Fastlane match a couple years ago, and I think that match will be pretty big for Peacock. I also think that Edge and Christian reforming will be pretty good for Peacock. So I think that either way it goes, that would be the SmackDown situation is solid. The Raw situation is cloudy but interesting. So we have to deal with these mid-card titles now and these women's titles because who knows what the hell's going on there. But overall, Elimination Chamber was a good show. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel. I love that these shows are now short. They start at 7, they're over at 9:30. You know, I love it. When the crowds come back, I want this to stay the same. Bell time at 7. The show is over at 9:30, 9:45. You're not super tired when the show is over. And you have some time to think. You're not sleepy. But you know, who knows what they'll actually do. I think, you know, it feels good to start a show at 7 o'clock on a Sunday. You know, why not? But back to what I was saying. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, use the hashtag 3Count Commentaries to draw attention to the channel. Thank you guys. If you want to send me money, please do in the comment section below. And have a nice day, man. Peace out.